Hi, I'm Demi Stevens, founder and CEO of You're the Book Press and editor-in-chief of Self Pub Magazine. I'm here in the studio today with illustrator Brett Greiman for a little bit of a behind the scenes to find out who this artist really is. Tell us a little bit about your personal life.
Well, my personal life, my wife and I have been married for quite a long time. She probably wouldn't like me to say how long.
That's good. That's good. She's a lady.
But we don't get an awful lot of time together. She works a lot and I work a lot. So a few years ago, our trips, would take like a 2 or 3 day trip to the beach, a few day trips here and there. And
where have you gone this day?
well, this day was the Woodstock,
New York.
Woodstock Music Fair. And the only reason we got, now it's only actually about a 4-hour drive from here, but we had a nephew who was getting married in upstate Pennsylvania near the Poconos.
Oh, yeah.
So I just happily discovered that the Woodstock site was only about 45 minutes from there. So I suggested, why don't we go a day early and we can go to the Woodstock site and visit the Woodstock Museum.
Is that a period of music that the two of you like?
More me than her. Well, I did.
So she was humoring you on this trip.
One of the people who performed there back in 1969, right here's her name here, was Melanie.
Really?
And back in 1996, I met her publicist online and got to talking to her, and she invited me to go down to Florida and meet Melanie, where she was living at the time near Tampa. And she told me that Melanie was going to be creating a single CD version of her 25th anniversary CD that was distributed in Europe. But in this country, she's an independent act, and maybe I'd be interested in designing the cover. So I got that project. So the trip to Woodstock had personal meaning too. And so, as I said, we also toured the museum, which sits up here on the hill. This is back behind us. This is where the stage was. So we got to go through that, and it wasn't just a case of seeing memorabilia. What I thought was great about the museum is you actually step in to the museum in the 1950s, and it gives you even a touch back into post Second World War to give a background on what was happening in our culture, and that then takes you into the 1950s, the birth of rock and roll, and then how the Vietnam War and all the cultural changes that were happening influenced my generation and our music. So we had a good time with that. So as I said, I thought this would be a good piece photograph to bring along, because it really does say how life is for us. It's we get away when you can get away, and you find the time to enjoy the things you want to enjoy.
Well, in the same way that the journey from 1955-ish, birth of rock and roll, it feels to me just worlds apart from Woodstock's generation.
I see. I think it was a case of that was what needed to ignite those changes. What I mean by that is, there was a standard for here's what popular music is in the 1940s up until, let's say, Elvis Presley came along.
Yeah.
But then I think the other thing too,
big break of Elvis.
So you had Elvis being influenced by the blues, very American version genre of music. So Elvis was influenced by the blues, and then other artists at that time were being very much influenced, and that influence then spread, across the ocean to the Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and they picked up on that. So I think what's interesting for a lot of people, they may not know that when you talk about the British invasion, well, the British invasion had its roots in African American blues, and that's really that's really where rock and roll had its birth.
So who were your artistic influences?
Oh, artistic. Well, right now, one of my, and for quite the past few years, a gentleman by the name of Wolf Kahn, Kahn. He does a very colorful type of painting. In many of his paintings, it doesn't have the traditional focal point. It's all about expression with color, and that for me is a big turn on. But traditionally, I've admired the work of Van Gogh, Monet, and Renoir was a big one. In fact, when I met my wife, one of the first things I said to her long before she was my wife, I said, "You remind me of a Renoir painting."
You had her.
Yeah. I don't think at that point she was really familiar with her, but just telling her she looked like a painting, it's like, okay, this is a done deal.
You're sly. I'll give you credit there.
So I was being very sincere.
It was a good line either way. So here's one of the pieces of art that appears in a book, right?
Yes, this is in Judy Wolfman's book, The Longest Escape, or Long Escape.
Long Escape.
Long Escape. This is created, what I did actually was took a photograph that had appeared in the paper, and actually I think it might be 2 photographs, and in Photoshop I cut them apart, rearranged them, flipped them, colorized them, added the Chinese flag in the background and field of red here. And then one of the interesting things you can do, I mean, it's very unlikely that anybody's going to look at this type here and know what that means, but for me it becomes a design element. But what it actually does say is finding a home, which is what these refugees were attempting to do. They were attempting to escape from the totalitarian government that they were trying desperately to leave, and they went through an awful lot to make that happen. So what I did was in Google Translate, I typed in finding a home, and this is what it gives me then. And then essentially in Adobe Photoshop, what I can do is I can take that type and convert it to outlines, which makes it, at least from the program's point of view, it's no longer type, it's artwork.
Appears like an image.
Exactly. So then what you can do is I put an image in the background of the type, and that's why you're getting that variation.
And there's a little bit of shadow here as well.
Yeah, so did a lot of different things with this original news photograph. So I had a lot of fun with it.
So much goes into the making of these pieces of art. It's astounding to me. Now, I understand that your, sole bread and butter is not just books. So I asked you to bring in today a piece of art that's unrelated. Tell us about this beauty, because I want a copy.
Well, this actually had its start back in 1993 when I met a local author and poet, and she's also, to some extent, also a visual artist, Anne-Lucille Kolash. We met at York Arts when it was just beginning, and she approached me about possibly looking through some of her writings and seeing if anything, inspired anything in me, and this one did. It's from her writing called Babaloo, Babaloo, and Babaloo is the little girl who dreams at night that she can fly with the owls. So this is actually, if you see, this is probably about 70% of the original size, but the original is...
So the original is bigger?
Yes, yeah. And it's done on unstretched canvas with a combination of acrylics and fabric markers.
Really?
And it now serves as a wall hanging, and I don't offer this one for sale.
Why not?
It's there for my daughter, and if she ever has a child, it's for her to pass on.
Wow.
One other interesting note on this one, though, is I worked with a local musician. She now lives in Wilmington, North Carolina, but we were working on designing her CD cover. And we were going through a lot, and she came over to my studio. She asked to excuse herself, walked back the hallway, came back, and said, Brett, we can forget everything we just designed. I want, if it's okay with you, I want that painting from the
She
CD
saw
cover.
this.
Yeah. So it also serves as a CD cover, too.
I think that's fascinating that I'm seeing you use art not just for art's sake, but to incorporate it in books or musical covers.
And I think, too, the other thing for me is I like to vary its application, but if you go back to where ideas start for me, ideas often start for me from writers, and whether it be songwriters or writers of books or poetry.
So as you're developing ideas for new artwork, does it ever just wake you up in the middle of the night and you have to go find a sketch pad?
In fact, I haven't done it lately, but I used to keep a pad and pencil right on my nightstand. But then I found that, no, this is interrupting my sleep so much. But interestingly, back in...
Does it interrupt your wife's sleep too?
Oh, no, she's a sound sleeper.
Oh,
yeah. But in 2001, I was designing the York Fest poster. And I had my pad and pencil right there. And it was strange. I don't know where it came from. But the moment I laid down and closed my eyes, I saw the image of it. And I put it down on paper, and next day got up. And that one was done in Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop. I got right to work on it. So, question where it comes from, you just go with it.
That's incredible. Do you have any words of advice for artists who might be watching our video today?
Well, it'd be perseverance. You have to recognize that there's part of you that needs to be creative, that the universe itself is creativity, it's energy coming into form. And if you allow yourself that creative expression, everything will work out for you. Just keep trying, know that each...
My creative expression came out as a cat stick figure drawing.
Hey, take one of my drawing classes. I'll bring you around.
Where could I find out more?
York Art Association. I have a class there called Dynamic Acrylic Painting.
And someone just like a beginner like me could...
Lord, yes. I've had... I'm picturing several different people in my head that came into class... and this is the majority of them. Brett, I have no experience in acrylic painting, but I've heard that you...
How about Brett? I can't draw anything more than a stick-figure cat.
One of the things I do in the description for my painting classes, I mark on there if you have any help that you feel you need with drawing. It's not a drawing class, but I'm here to help you with it. So, if you have a problem with your cat, I'll show you how to measure out proportions to get it right.
Oh, you mean with the drawing of my cat, not a problem with my physical cat?
Oh, definitely not fixing up the cats. No, it's drawing of the cat. Yeah.
That's incredible. So you're an artist, an illustrator, and a teacher as well.
Oh, yes.
Where do you find time for anything else?
It's I make sure that my life is well balanced. I'm really into bicycling, so I make sure I get out on the trail.
Oh, we probably passed each other and didn't even know it.
Probably. So I do that, but the real trick is if you have a lot of things going on, you just got to make sure you keep your calendar up to date and look at it every day.
Do you balance multiple art projects together at the same time, or do you try and start one?
In fact, the project I'm working on, Superboy, I had a mural that I was working on at the same time. So what I did was...
So large scale.
Right,
mural.
yes. So what I did was I worked on that project, mural project, in the morning, and then worked on the book illustration work in the afternoon. But between the mural project in the morning and the book project in the afternoon, 12 to about 3 was for me if the weather was nice, to get out.
Oh.
So
I imagine that physical exercise probably clears a lot
it
of...
does. I mean, it's an absolute necessity.
Hmm.
And you get to this age, if you're sitting all day, the joints just stiffen up. Now, I know
No, we don't know anything about
you
that.
don't know that.
You're very kind. Your wife has you trained so well.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
I can't wait to learn more. Thank you so much for joining
Well,
us
thank you.
today. I may have a book or two to farm your way.
Sounds good. Sounds good.